Welcome back to Knights Multimedia. Warren Walker, I'm your host. Today we are going to discuss, is your website ever complete? Can it ever be that it's finished, that you've built it and you've developed it and you've created it in a place that you're absolutely satisfied with, and like a magazine, it's once and for done? Is that possible? Do you think your brand is complete? Yes, welcome back. The idea of a website being complete is as good an idea as jumping out of an airplane thinking you're not going to hit the ground. No matter how many parachutes you have, no matter what you have attached to you, eventually you're going to hit the ground. So your website, can it be completed? Before we discuss it, let's have a quick word from our sponsor, findatour.co.za. Thanks again to our sponsor, findatour.co.za. Knights promo, that's the code you can use to see what discount you can qualify if you are booking your tour to here, to South Africa, to Cape Town. Have a look at them. I've dropped the link in the description below. Go and, although we might not travel right now, in the future, whenever you watch this video, you might need to travel. It's a great place to come to. Believe me, I live here. I can tell you, this is a great place to come to. Beautiful scenery, beautiful beaches, white sand, amazing wine. Definitely. Make your way here. Go follow the link. Use that code, get a discount. So you've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort. You've thought about it. You've discussed it with your friends, with your work colleagues. You've had meeting after meeting, webinars. You've chatted on Zoom and Skype. You've got all the information you can. You've had editors get together and producers and everybody you can think of to make your website just perfect. Something that you can be really proud of. And you get all the latest information together and you put it together and you package it nicely up and you hire yourself 5 designers and they all come up with the absolute best. They complement each other and every part of your website is just perfect. And you build it just the way it's designed, and your developer pushes it out absolutely brilliantly. I mean, it is state of the art. It is super fast. It is refreshing. It is perfect. It is absolutely everything you as a brand want. And now it's on the internet. Is it done? Now, to start, there is no such website. No website is perfect. No website is 100%. There isn't a website on this planet that is like that. Not even the biggest brands are perfect. We could always look at them and decide we like them slightly differently. Their colors are wrong, or their text is, or the language, or something isn't perfect for us. Why? Because we're individuals. We have our own needs and our own requirements and the own thing we like to look at. And my screen size is different to your screen size. And so you look at it and go, it's just great. But I look at it and it's not quite as good. The spacing is different. Maybe you're sitting on a very old computer and so the graphics aren't that great. Or you don't have the latest Java. So it doesn't respond quite the same. For somebody else, there's a beautiful swoosh that comes in, and for yours, it just blocks there. How does that affect your website? So it can affect your website. But let's pretend everybody on this planet goes to your website. On that first day, that grand release, you've let it known to the world, you've spent hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars on building this website. $500,000 you've spent on building this website. And it's live. People visit it. And they love it, and your hits are up there, and You barely have to promote it. And all the social medias are just talking about your website. And this goes on for 6 months. Can you say that your website is finished? It's done, it's complete. I don't need to address it anymore. It's everything that my customers want. Well, is it everything your customers want? Who are your customers when you put it out? Who are your customers in 6 months' time, in a year's time, 2 years from now? Do you have the same customers? Do your customers have the same needs? Do things change? We know that if you have a website that's 2 years old, it's already old technology on an old browser, on old Java, on old. If your website isn't updated for right now, then it's incomplete. So we need to address, is your website ever finished? The answer is no. Let's take, for example, golf. Now, not everybody plays golf. Some of us, we're great at the idea of golf. We now hit that ball. The ball never listens to where we're going, but we give it our best. We might not have a few lessons. We keep swinging that club, although it's not the right club. It's an old club. It was given to us, and it's a ladies' club, or we're a man, or vice versa. It's got too much swing, or too much kick, or whatever it is. But we play, and we practice, and we practice. And over time, our game improves. How do we relate that to our website? Well, because no websites are ever perfect, we can practice, and we can build, and we can look and see what people require, what technology is out there. In the past, we would never have thought about having the stuff that we have now. Interaction and sending push notifications and little communication boxes at the top that people can type in. Those things weren't heard of before. Now, they're part of normal websites. So if you built your website before a certain period of time, you wouldn't have those on your website. And that could be exactly what your customers need to be able to communicate with you easier. You might be old style, and so you want people to phone you. The new style isn't like that. Your customers are living both new and old. You need to accommodate for both. You need to develop yourself to a point where you are interactive with your customers. So just like with golf, that you've got to practice over and over and over to become better, to become a quicker game, to be a shorter game, to not spend half your time looking for your ball in the brush or in the water. I must admit, occasionally it's nice to put your ball in the water. That way you can get rid of that one and try a new one, because that one clearly is not working for you. The same for your website. You might be doing something and it just isn't working for you. Or it might work for a while and all of a sudden your visitors drop. Because why? Somebody else is doing something better. So if your website stands still, if you're going to treat it as a printed page, once I've done it, there it is. It might be relevant for right now, but in a year's time, it's no longer relevant. It's no longer applicable. Why? Let's find out why. Let's have a look at why your website needs to keep changing. So why do you need to keep changing your website? Does your website need to grow? Why do you need to move forward? Well, the whole world is moving forward. It's like this ball that's cotton ball. It's just tumbling along down a hill. And your website, it's a signboard standing on the side of that road. For a moment, that cotton ball is right next to your website. And your website's great. And a few moments later, the ball has passed your website. It's looking at another website. It's looking at your competition. It's looking at something that they've thought of that you haven't. A question that they've answered that you haven't. Why? Well, your website was built for that moment in time. And that moment in time, if your website is perfect, I mean, it's got every question answered, your website is relevant at that time. If your website was built and not edited within the last 3 months, your website has nothing to do with what's happening right now. You need to edit your website. If you are impacted by this crisis that's hit the world, your website or your business or your brand has stood still because of this, you need to let your customers, your visitors know Your website needed to be updated to be relevant. And of course, once all of this passes, your website once again needs to show it's back on track with what's new. Keep changing with circumstances. Keep growing. Keep answering those new questions. Maybe the legislation in your country has changed. Maybe they're only allowing you to operate for a shorter period during this time. Your customers need to know this. You can't assume that they saw it on social media or they saw it on the news that now they know that your industry can't be open. No, you need to make sure that your customers are aware of it yourself. Yes, you can put a post on social media. Yes, you can send out a newsletter. But what if they don't see your post? What if they're not on your news list? How do they find out? They come to your website. Your website is very important to keep going, to be visible, to be relevant. It is very important to be up to date. It can't be complete. It's complete for one moment. After that, it's old. It's behind. It's like buying a new computer. The moment you walk out the shop and you take it home, a new version comes out of something in it. And no longer have you got the latest one. You go out and you buy a car. And within a few months, there's a new car that comes out. A 2020. Then there's a 21. You never stay relevant. You always move behind. Just like with golf. You stop playing. Your game gets bad. You lose the edge. You used to be able to have a really good game. You used to get low scores. But because you haven't played for several months or for a year, your game disappears. You can't seem to hit straight. You can't connect that ball just in that sweet spot. You don't get the distance anymore. You don't read the wind. And on the green, the ball just never wants to go where you want it to go. Why? Because it's out of practice. Don't let your website become out of practice, because that's what will happen. It gets behind. Only for that moment is that ball seeing that banner. After that, it moves on. Don't get left behind. Your website is not complete. It needs to move forward with your brand. I suppose a better question would be not is your website complete, is your brand complete? Can your brand be complete? Well, that's a completely different discussion. But if your brand can't be or isn't complete, how can your website be complete? How can you leave your website to sit and rot? Because that's what it's doing. Just parking there, keeping space, like your car. It just parks there, keeping space. Have you ever tried leaving your car in a garage for 6 months, for a year, and then go and look at the dust that's sitting on it? Probably in my case, the cat paws as well. Try and turn it over. It doesn't start. It needs a jump. Why? It's not meant to park. Cars are not meant to stand still. Cars are meant to be driven. That's why they're cars. That's why they have wheels. 5 of them. 1 to steer, a few of them to go forward. Your website isn't meant to stand still. It's going to get dust. It's going to get old. Everybody else is progressing their brand. Everybody else is building for the future. They're updating. They're looking at what's relevant, what information they can put on their website to make theirs just a little bit flashier than yours. Your customers that visit you today, they're easily distracted. They don't have those horse blinkers on so that they can only see your website. They're looking for the latest, whatever's out there, whatever they can put their hands on. If your website isn't that, then you're getting behind. If you think about your search engines, they want what's newest, freshest. They look and see when your website was last updated. They have a record. They can see that you haven't changed your website. So in other words, to them, the information you have is old. 6 months, a year. It's no longer relevant. Even if you just add 1 blog to your website a week, answering that pertinent question, and putting a little something on your front page saying you've updated your blog. Just that alone, that small amount, keeps your website relevant to Google, to Yahoo, to Bing. Just that little bit of extra work that you put in. And it doesn't need to be a lot, but you do need to look and address your customers, their needs. if they've asked a question, if they phoned you up, dropped you an email, why not add it to your website? Why not put it on there? That way your website has movement, it has traction. It shows that it's trying to stay relevant. It shows it's trying to be new, something that your customers appreciate. If I've already come to your website and your website's complete, you've done it, and I visit your website and I have a look and it's grand and I think, wow, really nice. I like this website. I like the look. I like what it looks like and everything about the website I enjoy. And then I come back 6 months later and I go, I've seen this before. Do I spend any time on your website? Do I look at your website? Do I read it again? No, I've seen this. It's nothing new. They've got no new products, no new services, nothing updated, same photo. Why do I need to look at your website? And then you've got to ask yourself, if you pay that little attention to your website, would I want to hire that somebody to work for me, to do the service I require? Would I want to buy their product? Their product's also probably an old product. Right? I want the latest product. I don't want somebody old. People run out every year and buy the latest phone that comes out. They don't want an old one. So if your website is still old, they don't want your product. They don't want your service. They want it to look fresh. All the big brands, all the time, are improving their website, are changing the look, are starting over with new designs, progressing and growing, adding in another language, adding in better images, new services, just rewriting the services so it looks fresh. A new color. They look at what's trending right now and they examine that, and then they see how they can apply it to their own website. The website needs to grow with your brand. Your brand doesn't stand still. As you grow, as you mature, your customers are also maturing. If you're 30 and your ideal customer is 30, when you hit 35, is your ideal customer still 30? Or have they got also to 35? So you need to look at who you're attracting. If your customer is 80 years old, practically 1 foot in the grave, then it never changes. And most likely they don't care if your website changes, because they're only practically looking to say, are you open or not? Can they buy a ticket or not? They need nothing else. But if your target has a moving pattern, then your website needs to be able to move with it. Because if it can't, your website is left behind. Those blinkers, they're there to destroy you. If your brand stops, then your website stops. But if your brand keeps going, your website needs to keep going. It is not ever complete. So in conclusion, let's pretend for a moment that you're brand new in the industry and you've just set up your website and it's good enough for right now with the education, the knowledge, the wisdom you have, the amount of growth in your industry. You've looked at your competition and you're happy with where your website is. And you build your website. And slowly over time, things change. Websites, the look of it changes. We used to have everything in a box. Now it's full width. We used to have a home in the menu. Now we don't have a home in the menu anymore. Now the actual image on the left-hand side of your screen, people click there to go home. So let's pretend you're keeping up with those little adjustments and your website grows slightly. Think about it. 5 years down the line, your knowledge of your industry has grown. You've answered a lot of questions. You've had to talk to a lot of people explaining your product. You've had to educate people because it's the best way. How do you take your website that, as you know, is not complete to the next level? Well, maybe you, like me, apprehensive, shy, standing in front of a camera. So you don't want to do that. But you find you're quite relaxed talking about your specific industry, and you want to help people about your industry. You want to educate them. Say you're in tourism, like our sponsor. Thank you to our sponsor. You want to educate people. So you've got lots to say about Cape Town, about the tours, about how to travel, safety, the electricity, where you're going, everything like that related to tourism. How to book your tours, what visas or whatever you need to be able to do your tour. You have all that knowledge 5 years later that you never had before. How do you implement that on your website? Well, you start a podcast, which I have, by the way. You can find the link below. You start a podcast, because there you can just talk. You can grab a mic, stand in front of your laptop, and talk your heart out. You make a 15-minute, 20-minute, half an hour, each episode explaining some part of your industry. That needs to be somewhere. So what do? You put that on your website, saying, if you'd like to listen to my podcast, there it is. Click the button. Go and listen to it. Every week you put up a new one. Your website keeps changing. Somebody comes along and goes, oh, look, they've got a podcast. Let me listen and see what they've got. So what do? They click on it. They listen. You're combining education with website growth. It's important to be relevant. It's important to educate. It's important to show that you're the leader in your industry. Even if you're not, even if you're small. Even Goliath was fooled by David. And he was a small, young child. Goliath was a giant. If you're up against giant industries, well, they move slow. They have board meetings about board meetings about board meetings. You don't. You're small. You can make a decision based on your knowledge and move into it. It's simple. You have the knowledge. You can educate. So let your website reflect your youth. Even if you're not young, let it reflect it. Let it show that you have a young, energetic website. A brand that is willing to educate people. A brand that doesn't stand still, so you cannot expect your website to stand still. So my message for today is make sure your website is kept up to date. A little bit at a time. Address it, work on it, and let it grow. That way you keep the attention of your customers, of your visitors. Let them keep coming back, because there's something for them to read each time they come back. Having said that, please have a look at my website, knightspromo.co.za. I had to rebuild it. We'll get to that in another video. Why I hate WordPress, something like that. Because I really hate WordPress. We'll address that in another episode. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Please give us a thumbs up. Follow the channel. Turn on your notifications so you get the next one. It was lovely chatting to you. I hope I've given you something to think about, something to contemplate, so we can grow together. Please leave me a comment. If you agree, or disagree, have a point, something else I would like and clarify or talk about, leave me a comment. I will read it and I will get back to you. Thanks again to our sponsor. Please use the code booking a tour, knightspromo, and you can get a discount. Stay safe, affect what you can't, what you can, and leave the rest to the birds. Cheers.